right. I know that you guys thought that I wasn't going to post. Just making sure the mic's working. But I did. I got it together. Took me a little bit of time. Yes. Took me a little bit of time to get situated. One of my friends was in town, as you guys saw. So, today was a little bit slower. You guys get a different angle here. Oh, that's me. I did that. Whoops. So yeah, we're gonna go for a drive. I'm actually probably gonna have a hard time fitting in a workout, which is a little bit unfortunate, but hey, shit happens. So it is what it is. But yeah, basically, there we go. We'll go with that. Basically today, the plan was to do some general work. You know, it is Tuesday, so usually I would try to do maybe I'll still get this in. Maybe do the quasi-iso circuit, add a couple reps to that, and maybe a quick kettlebell circuit. We'll see if I have time this evening. I do have a call, like a group call with everyone. So, that has to take priority over kind of some of the other stuff, which that's just the nature of business. You can't really get away from that too much. I got to do my job, and yeah, that just is what it is. So that being said, I wanted to pick a topic and talk to you guys a little bit about it, or a couple topics. So one of them is sprinting, and another one that I want to talk about is actually missing workouts. So if you miss a workout, I think that a lot of people think it's like the end of the world, right? That you kind of have screwed up your whole cycle, or that the training isn't going to work, or whatever else, right? And I want to say that in some ways, well, it does depend, but in some ways yes, in some ways no. Yes, in the sense that if you are on a very strict schedule, a very strict, not schedule, but like programming, and you're very good about following it to a T, if you do miss workouts often, you're definitely not going to see like consistent improvement. That also depends on how advanced you are with training, right? Like as you get into your 30s and stuff like that, you don't really have the luxury of just like chewing up training volume like you did when you were in your 20s or whatever else, right? Like there's definitely, slide this over a little bit. Oh, whoops. There we go. There's definitely less work capacity because your intensity is so much higher. Like for me to go in and do cleans and everything else, like my intensity, my output during those lifts at my age with my kind of considerations, if I get through a full cycle, I'm probably going to end up a little bit banged up. And so a lot of the time you have to write in pencil. But if you're a younger athlete, which honestly this applies to most of you watching this video, you definitely need to be trying to hit as many workouts as you possibly can. Now, it's not the end of the world if you do miss a workout. It's not like you're gonna it's not like you're not gonna improve, or you're gonna lose all your gains if you miss a workout. But generally speaking, because you don't have that built up reserve, because you haven't developed your neuromuscular system, because you haven't developed your muscle tissue, because you haven't developed your tendon stiffness, you basically are not shooting yourself in the foot, but it is very important for you to get through that gauntlet for your long-term athletic development, right? And the reason why there's so much general volume in there, the reason why there's so much squatting and cleans and development on all these different capacities and qualities, is because to have a really high peak, you typically need a really long, slow buildup. It's like a lot of people think that if you want to reach your genetic potential, the best way to do it is by getting there as fast as possible, right? Do as much as you can, as quick as possible, at all cost, try to get better, and don't really take into consideration some of the risks that come along with that. Let's see if I can crank up this ISO a little bit more. There we go, so you guys can see me. And that's just not the case, like you're gonna have times when it's tempting to do that, but if you want to really achieve like your absolute genetic potential, it is imperative that you go through the gauntlet of just, more or less like not fun training. Doing depth jumps and plyos and bounding and jumping and all that stuff, like those are pretty advanced training stimuli, and I think doing them really early on has some benefit because it teaches you those movements, but in the long term it can be detrimental because once you use a stimulus, and I've said this before, you kind of like you lose that bullet in the chamber, right? And what you want to do is try to wait until an athlete is prepared for it, and then use some of those more advanced training stimuli. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't hop, you shouldn't bound, you shouldn't do depth jumps, but there's some programs out there where guys will go and they'll just blow that stuff up, right? And they'll just kind of randomly, haphazardly do it. There's no progression, whatever else. And some guys see really good improvement, and then they end up getting hurt, or their capacity is lower, or their overall genetic potential isn't reached because they didn't take the longer path versus the short, aggressive path. So when it comes to missing workouts, you don't want to just do the high days, right? And you don't want to miss all the general days. However, you want to try to the best of your ability to get to all those workouts because you're going to accumulate fatigue, which is going to lead to more adaptation. Now, are you going to perform better by doing that all the time? No, absolutely not, because you're going to generate a lot of fatigue. And I remember, like in high school, I used to get after it. I'm talking 3 to 4 hours a day in the gym, or on the track and in the gym, right? From the time I was like 15 until I was, I don't know, probably actually earlier, probably 13. Well, 13 I was probably training an hour and a half to 2 hours. I would just see what was on the piece of paper and I'd do it, right? And, there were times like during puberty when my development was crazy fast, right? My gains were crazy fast. Isaiah saw similar things, Austin saw similar things. A lot of you guys have probably seen similar things. You're going to get better during that period of time. Don't get me wrong. But then there were periods of time whenever I was training super hard and I'm like, oh, well, I should be getting really good during this time because I'm training so hard. And my gains were super slow. And I was like, what the hell? Like, why am I not running as fast as I think I should be running? Why am I not jumping as high as I should be jumping? Why am I not seeing these things? And it was because I never really, at the time my mentor Mike was coaching me, and he basically never, ever, ever let me take time off. Like, he was always just hammering. We never had those periods of time where we backed off. But in the end, I ended up spraining my ankle and jumping like 4 inches higher, consistently jumping 4 inches higher in high jump than I ever had because of those like adaptations that kind of took hold in my body over that 6 to 7 month period, my junior year when I was training really hard. So as I've gotten older, right, I've had a harder time stringing together, 6 to 7 months of training. It doesn't mean that I don't get periods of time with good training, but 6 to 7 months of like consistently good training is pretty difficult to like string together. So I lost my train of thought. There was a cop in front of me. It was really distracting. So like now I still have those periods where I'll push. Don't get me wrong. Like you guys just saw it the last 2 months with Isaiah and I, right? Or 2 to 3 months. We just push, get your strength numbers up, get your power clean up, try to get as many of these adaptations as possible for the future. You guys saw my power clean shoot up, my front squat shot up, my RDL recently I hit what was it, 335 for 5. Like what you're witnessing now is not, you're witnessing the results of those 2 to 3 months of pushing, right? It's not like my hip thrust, I had 665 for 5 or something like that, or 635 for 5. That's way more than I was doing in the fall, right? So it wasn't the fact that, oh, well, I'm just naturally strong. No, it's the fact that I loaded for 2 to 3 months and then took time off to let my body recover and then demonstrate that output. So that period of time, like I said, I didn't miss a workout during that time. But had I missed a workout, what I will do is I will always pick up with the current day. And the reason for that is because there's a lot more training that you haven't done than there is training that you have done. And so if you're one of my athletes and you're like, oh, well, I've missed a day of training, right? Who gives a shit? I don't care if you missed 2 weeks or 3 weeks because you were sick. Just pick up with the current day, right? Because the current day of training is going to be the most relevant. It's going to be the most effective and practical, and it just gets you back on the horse, right? There's always going to be training you haven't done, and just hopping into a cycle and just doing the best of your ability to finish that cycle is going to be more productive. On top of that, what happens with training being cyclic is that if you try to play catch up and you do 2 workouts at once, or you set yourself back, you want to do a previous cycle, you're going to peak at the wrong time. That's one issue. The second is you're going to double down on fatigue, and that can be really, really detrimental. Like if I'm a high jumper or like a basketball player, right? And I have these THP workouts, and I'm like, well, I missed last week, so let me just do 2 workouts, or I missed the last couple of days, let me do 2 workouts today. Well, guess what? The following day, let's say you did a high intensity lift, you paired that with a low intensity lift, and the following day I scheduled you a high intensity lift. Well, now you've doubled down, your fatigue is doubling up, and you're kind of screwed for the following week because you've induced more fatigue than you can probably recover from. And you might not know that you need to unload or you need to step back if you do that. Like you could do that, but you might need like 2 days off after doing that to fully recover. So just some stuff on missing training. I don't like it happens, but always, if you're on my training, pick up with the current day. There are like hundreds and hundreds, actually there's like 1,000 weeks of training you haven't done. So trust me, do the one that's listed to the best of your ability. All right, the second thing that I want to talk about was sprinting, because this is something that Austin was like, well, why don't we really sprint anymore, for jump training? Like you put in a lot of the athletes training, like why don't we do it too often? So there's a couple reasons. One is logistics, right? I don't have access to a track right now. I really don't. I wish I did, but I don't. And that means that I either have to sprint on a court, I either have to sprint on a field, or I have to sprint in front of my house or someone else's house. So I'm okay doing that, but the time and the annoyance that goes into having to do that for me at this point in my athletic career doesn't really make sense, because I'm 30 years old. The last time and this is the second point, is in the risk of injury, right, is a lot higher for sprinting. And I didn't realize this early on, but now as I've gotten older, I've definitely learned this. Is a lot higher with sprinting as you get older and you haven't done it for a period of time. And, if I were to build back into it and I'm trying to push intensity, or I'm racing Isaiah, or I'm racing Austin, I end up really pissing off my hips, and I put my hamstring at a high risk of injury. Now, for someone like Isaiah and Austin, Isaiah doesn't dislike doing it, but he just doesn't feel like it helps him that much anymore. Early on, he saw a lot of really positive adaptation to that. And that's what I was saying earlier. Like, you have to put the time in, and you have to get through those, like, kind of annoying, shitty progressions before you start to see long-term, not long-term improvement, but before you can, like, be confident you're going to hit your genetic potential. So for Isaiah, it was like, okay, let me put all this sprinting in. I was doing sprinting, Austin was doing sprinting. We all were doing sprinting. It was like 2017 onward. Probably 2022 or something, it started to bother his back, and then, he pulled his quad, and then it bothered his Achilles or something else. Like, there was a bunch of reasons why it was like, well, the goal is to jump, not Turkey. Austin's calling. Hey, bro, you're on the podcast. What do you want to say to the people?
Oh, nothing. I have absolutely nothing to say to these people. The people. I love you all. Actually, I'm upset. Okay, John, I'm at the Nike outlet. This is real quick.
Yes.
They have a pre-owned pair of 37s, like lately worn for $65, size 12.
Oh, size 12? Do they have any 13s?
Nah, just that. They had no basketball shoes in your size. It's the only one, and it's refurbished.
Really? Yeah, I'm gonna have to pass on that.
They look brand new though. It's not like they look bad.
Oh, really?
You said you said 12 to 13.
I just feel like 12. I feel like 12 is a little bit on the small side. What are they? They're 37s.
Yeah. Lows, 37 lows.
Yeah, I'll pass on that. I like the setup of the 36s. All right, ciao.
Yeah.
So Austin was my shoe connect. He was looking at that for me. Anyway, so yeah, with sprinting, like Isaiah got a bunch of injuries. I got older, and I had a very, very hefty background in sprinting, so I built up a lot of elastic contacts over that period of time. And then Austin, he is someone who actually probably would benefit from it. The reason why I haven't been having him sprinting is because the logistics of that have been very difficult. His training compliance we had to improve to a point where it made sense to program something that was going to take more time out of his day, be a little bit more inconvenient, et cetera. He now has kind of a little bit more flexibility in his schedule, so it gives him the the availability to actually do those sessions. And then also for him, he has this weird, he actually went to the doctor today and they're like, oh, he has this like TFL IT band thing going on, which is initially what I may have said. So I was like, oh, it could be related to your adductor. I don't know if it was in a video, but he is, so it is related to like his hip flexor and stuff, which we kind of thought. And then, maybe his IT band is also playing a role in there. It's funny, that's the same thing Isaiah has issues with. So maybe that's a cue that there's something in the training that's deficient. I don't know, but we're gonna see what he says about that. But sprinting could be a really good way to kind of build that tissue capacity up, right? Like, even though when you're contacting the ground, you're generating force through your hip extensors and knee extensors and plantar flexors. If you drive your knee forward, let's say as aggressively as possible, even though it is at body weight, and you do that, let's say a rep is 10 strides, right? You got 5 drives each leg as hard as you can with stretch reflexes and everything else. You're going to end up building that tissue up. You're going to end up strengthening it. You're going to end up seeing adaptation. Rate of force development is going to go up. All these positive adaptations are going to go up. So it could really help him in this weird kind of hip thing, and it might just sort itself out. And sometimes, like with the human body, that happens when you have robust training. Like I've always told Isaiah and I've told Austin, like good training is inherently rehabilitative, right? It is inherently therapeutic. So for them, if they do all the training, including the general days, and then add in or for Isaiah, or Austin specifically in this case, and he does the sprinting, right, it might just clear up because we're working that tissue. We're getting his pelvis and shoulders to move in an oscillating and undulating sense. We're seeing stretch reflexes happen in different ways. We're getting different types of foot contacts. We're loading his deep hip muscles at foot contact when he hits the ground. You're seeing small stretches and shortening at those joints, and those kind of small muscles you might not even see. And because sprinting is unilateral, you have to have a level of balance between your right and left leg, right? It's not like you're going to gallop your way to the finish line. And so sometimes, like I said, that stuff can, if you do sprint or you add these capacities in, sometimes it can be really productive. So yeah, that said, Austin is probably going to build back into those pretty soon. But for a lot of you guys who are listening to this, the reason that sprinting is so important, and the cases where you might want to take it out, is if you have hip problems, you would want to take it out. If it's causing muscle pulls, you probably want to take it out. It's probably not worth it. And the reasons why you want to do it there's tons, right? Like builds work capacity, good hormone response, improves body composition, great elastic contacts between your foot and the ground using your hip extensors, loads the Achilles in a positive way where it's storing and releasing energy very, very quickly. Let's see what else. You're surfing the whole force velocity curve, and you're getting overspeed stimuli because you're hitting velocities you can't really hit in jumping, and joint velocities you can't really hit in jumping. Let's see what else. Those are a lot of really good ones. The consistent stretch shortening cycle is happening like over and over and over again is a big, big reason why. So yeah, all those reasons why, sprinting is such an effective tool that you would want to put into your training. As a jumper, you need to be lean, you need to be powerful. Well, guess what happens when you sprint? You produce a shit ton of force into the ground. It leans you up because your intensity is higher than it could possibly be doing anything else. And you're developing a lot of coordination when it comes to turning on and off muscles very, very quickly. The downside is it's higher risk. So that's why we always start with shorter sprints and then build guys out, etc. The last time I sprinted consistently might have been Los Altos. Or no, I did it on a court. I've done it on a court. I didn't really do it when I was in DC. I did it I did it a lot actually when I was on my East Bay journey. If you guys haven't seen those videos, you go watch them. Week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4 to 2022 dunk camp. It's kind of interesting to see the training there. It's really intense. So go watch those if you haven't. They're really highly quality, but the thumbnails suck. So I would encourage you to go back and watch those if you haven't. And there's a lot of good information in there. So that was probably the last time I sprinted a lot. I had a lot of hamstring issues at that time, and East Bays were making it so much worse. So I had to do a bunch of BFR. I had to do build into East Bays like very slowly. Going into camp, I like couldn't get as much volume in. So then I pulled the sprinting out when I was like kind of peaking in 2022, late 2022, early 2023. And it helped a lot because I just took away a bunch of training fatigue and workload. And I adapted really positively to all that stuff. So that's why I was saying, like, it can be really productive to do at the right time in the right doses. And that's why a lot of the time when you guys see like the John Evans special or something like that, like there's like no actual sprint volume in there because I'm trying to reduce fatigue. I'm trying to increase the short-term acute adaptation, and I'm trying to peak performance. And that's kind of what I'm in right now, right? I'm not trying to sprint. I could have sprinted the last 2 months probably, but logistically it just was going to be difficult. So who knows, maybe next year we'll do a little bit more sprinting in the training. I think the majority of people need to sprint. I've just sprinted a lot. Isaiah sprinted a lot. Austin could use more sprinting, but he's still sprinted a lot even. But to you guys, put the work in on that stuff. Don't skip it. I know a lot of people want to skip it. If you have a hard time getting to it, put it at the end of the workout. Drop intensity slightly. Doing any of that volume is better than doing none, and there's good tendon adaptations to it. So yeah, that's the video, guys. No lift or anything today. Just keep it very podcast heavy, podcast centric. As always, if you guys want training, I strongly encourage you to sign up for coaching with us. I really love coaching my athletes. I love working with you guys. It's my absolute passion. My favorite thing in the whole world is my job. I won't be done today until like 10 o'clock because I'll be doing it. Oh, let's turn this down for you guys. And if you want to be a part of that team and you want to get coached by me and Isaiah and Austin, then I join the team, man. This is what I love to do. It's my passion at the end of the day, and I want to help people get to their peak genetic potential. I want to help people achieve their athletic potential. But yeah, that's the video, guys. I will talk to you guys tomorrow. I know y'all really thought I wasn't gonna post. Donovan Hawkins is calling. Let's see what he says. Donovan Hawkins. I'm making a YouTube video right now.
John.
You're on the YouTube video right now.
Wait, what?
You're on the YouTube video right now.
Oh, I am? No way.
Yeah, dude. People don't believe I actually coach you.
Right now?
It's not a podcast, but kind of, yeah. It's just like a car cast. We'll call it a car cast.
Okay.
It's like a podcast in your car. Anyways, what's up?
Wait, what's the podcast on?
It's on sprinting, and it's also on missing workouts.
So this will be publicly posted then?
Yeah, I'll just stop the video now. See you guys.
You'll stop it? Okay.
Wait, hold on.